The next civil war. A summary and analysis. America, a nation long considered the apex of democratic stability and global leadership, stands today at the precipice of internal collapse. The next civil war. Dispatches from the American Future by Stephen Marche delivers a sobering forecast that is not science fiction, but rather an informed projection grounded in military analysis, academic research, and real-life developments. The work is both a chronicle of the conditions giving rise to potential civil strife and speculative narrative imagining the flashpoints that could ignite the nation into a bloody, decentralized war. The argument at a glance. Marche opens the book with a foundational premise. The United States is already in a low-level civil strife and is teetering on the brink of a full-scale civil war. This won't resemble the 1860s version with armies in gray and blue fighting pitched battles. It will be asymmetric, decentralized, and brutal. It will be neighbor against neighbor, fueled by ideology, race, religion, and grievance. It will not involve secession but fragmentation, political, informational, and even spiritual. Marche emphasizes that the conditions for such a descent, environmental catastrophe, economic disparity, institutional paralysis, political polarization, and collapsing social trust, are all already in place. What is missing is only the inciting event, the flashpoint. His book speculates on how such flashpoints might play out. Civil war as a cascading system. A civil war doesn't begin from a single cause or moment. It's the product of complex systems failing in tandem. Marche draws on the idea of a cascading system, where small failures in one area, e.g., political legitimacy, environmental stability, interact with others to trigger larger systemic collapse. This is particularly applicable in the U.S., where political gridlock, violent rhetoric, racial tension, and climate-induced stress are all pushing the boundaries. Notably, the U.S. has already met the Peace Research Institute Oslo's definition of civil strife, 25 combatant deaths per year, due to politically motivated violence. This places the country on the threshold of civil war, as per the academic standard of 1,000 combatant deaths per year. The inciting incidents, dispatches from the future. The book unfolds through speculative vignettes, or dispatches, imagining plausible triggers of civil conflict. These are not sci-fi fabrications, but based on expert modeling and current trends. The most famous is the Battle of the Bridge, where a small-town sheriff reopens a crumbling, federally condemned bridge in defiance of government orders. What starts as a local dispute explodes into a national crisis as militias, media, and political actors descend on the site, treating it as a symbolic stand against federal authority. Other dispatches include a breakdown in the food supply chain due to climate events, the assassination of a political figure, a military standoff between federal troops and rogue law enforcement or militias, the collapse of public infrastructure in major cities during climate emergencies, economic collapse triggering riots, mass looting, and martial law. These dispatches are speculative, but rooted in very real trends. Marche carefully notes that these are not predictions, but possible trajectories drawn from current conditions and historical analogs. Who are the enemies? Marche resists the urge to simplify. While he acknowledges the violent potential of the far right, he is also critical of the liberal establishment's blindness to systemic decay. He notes that belief in institutions remains high in elite liberal circles, even as those institutions fail to respond to public needs. In contrast, the hard right has recognized the failures and is actively preparing for collapse through militias, doomsday prepping, and secessionist rhetoric. He identifies three primary threats. 1. The hard right and anti-government patriots. These include militias, sovereign citizens, prepper communities, and political radicals who believe the federal government is illegitimate and tyrannical. They are ideologically incoherent, but united in their loathing of centralized authority. Groups like the Oath Keepers, Boogaloo Bois, and 3%ers are emblematic of this segment. 2. Institutional paralysis. Both the Democratic and Republican parties are trapped in a system that no longer works. The Electoral College, gerrymandering, and judicial partisanship have hollowed out democratic legitimacy. Congress cannot act, the courts are politicized, and the executive branch is constrained by inertia. 3. Environmental collapse and urban unlivability. Climate change is not an abstraction. It's already making parts of the U.S. uninhabitable. Rising sea levels, megastorms, wildfires, and droughts are weakening infrastructure and putting populations under massive stress. The government's capacity to respond is being outpaced by the scale of the crises. Disinformation as a weapon. A key theme in the book is how information has become weaponized. The internet, once heralded as a democratizing force, now enables tribalism, radicalization, and alternate realities. The far right has used memes, live streams, and fringe platforms to normalize insurrectionist sentiment. Cable news, social media, and talk radio form silos of outrage that dehumanize opponents and glorify the collapse of democracy. Misinformation campaigns, whether domestic or foreign, fuel public distrust and cynicism. Marche explains that the war begins in the mind before it begins in the street. The First Amendment, intended as a bulwark against tyranny, has paradoxically been weaponized to undermine democracy through unfiltered digital propaganda. The role of the sheriff. One of the book's most compelling analyses is the rise of the constitutional sheriff. These local law enforcement officials believe their authority supersedes federal law. The book interviews Richard Mack, a former sheriff and founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, CSPO, who believes federal agencies have no authority in his jurisdiction. Sheriffs like Mack see themselves as defenders of the real Constitution, ready to defy orders from Washington to protect liberty. These sheriffs are dangerous not just because of their ideology, but because they are embedded within law enforcement and hold real power. If enough of them defy federal authority, the central government could collapse from below, with armed local resistance preventing national enforcement. The failure of liberal optimism. Marche is unsparing in his critique of centrist liberals and institutionalists who believe that a return to normal is possible. He calls Joe Biden's call for healing a fantasy. Obama's rhetoric about a unified America is seen as tragically naive. For Marche, America is no longer one nation. It is several different countries coexisting uneasily under a single flag. The idea that a few electoral wins or moderate policies can reverse this fragmentation is, in his view, dangerous delusion. The system is not reformable in its current state. It must be reimagined from the ground up. Comparisons to history. Marche draws heavily from history, particularly the lead-up to the Civil War in 1861. He notes that few people saw the war coming, even as it became increasingly inevitable. Events like the beating of Senator Sumner on the Senate floor or John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry were dismissed as fringe or exceptional. Yet each event chipped away at the fragile unity until the dam burst. He also compares modern America to failed or failing states like Iraq and Yugoslavia, where sectarianism and institutional collapse led to internecine violence. The lesson: no country is immune to collapse, not even the richest and most powerful. Is it too late? While the tone of the book is grim, Marche is not a fatalist. He insists that collapse is not inevitable, but contingent. He doesn't offer simple solutions because there aren't any. What he does advocate is awareness, preparation, and above all, honesty. America must face its divisions, its history, and its structural failures with open eyes. One path forward, he hints, may be a complete constitutional overhaul. Another is a decentralized federation, or perhaps a soft separation, akin to the dissolution of Czechoslovakia. Whatever the case, he argues that clinging to an outdated and broken system guarantees disaster. Final thoughts. The next Civil War is not a book for the faint-hearted. It is a mirror held up to a nation on the verge of tearing itself apart. With a mix of reportage, analysis, and speculative narrative, Marche delivers a chilling but necessary meditation on the fragility of democracy and the costs of denial. This isn't alarmism, it's realism. The signs are all around us. Political violence is normalized. Institutional legitimacy is collapsing. Climate catastrophes are accelerating. The internet has turned every American into their own sovereign, with their own facts and truths. If there is hope, it lies in awareness, in the capacity of individuals to act, organize, and build something new, not in the ruins of the old system, but beyond it. The coming years will determine whether America can remake itself or whether, like so many empires before it, it collapses under the weight of its contradictions.